They said, so would you like the gift of tongues? No, thank you. But I couldn't get myself to say no, thank you. They said, I'll let you think about it. And so I went to my room and I tried to think of the politest way I could say no, thank you to them. And I came back out. But when I went back to my room, I had 2 missed calls. One was from Lefty, one was from my friend, my Pentecostal friend in Alabama, Jackie, and they both left messages like, oh, my charismatic friend called, it's going to be fun. So I go back and I prepared to tell them, no, thank you. And they said, so have you prayed? Do you want me to, do you want us to pray for you? And I said, yes. Why did I say that? Okay, I was planning for dinner. Yes. I still don't know where these yeses are coming from. So the reason I mention this is because I want to tell you how God has been so very clear and where He wants me, and I want you all to know that it's not by chance. It's not by chance. God has led me every step of the way, and I'm so grateful for Him to be so clear to me. And so they prayed for me that night, and I was everything they said I would be humiliated. I felt stupid. I felt this was another gift, and they said, but just give it a try. No, they didn't say give it a try. They said, if you have a gift, say God gives you the gift of singing, and you do not sing, how can you say you have that gift? It's not a gift unless you use it. And so I had 15 hours to drive and to pray in this new prayer language that God gave me, and alone, thankfully alone. And I just remember God telling me in the middle of that prayer, do you know how many languages there are in the world? And I thought, how many languages are there in the world? And I thought of the Tower of Babel, and I thought of how many different languages there must have been broken off that day, and said, oh, gosh, I don't know. I think St. Jerome said something about 153 nations during that time, and all the languages now. I'm like, gosh, I don't know, thousands of languages. And he said, no, I have a language. I have a prayer language for every person who will have one with me. I have set aside a language that you cannot curse in, you cannot sin in. With your tongue, with your language, you have lies, you have gossip, you have talked about people, you have done all these sins with your language. I have set aside this language for you to have with me. That you have not done any of these things, and it's part of heaven that I'm offering to you to have this language with me. Hi. Hi. And so I just felt God very powerfully speaking to me that He created this just for me. Just for me. And I said, okay, I will trust the fruits of it, because I don't know anything. I have no idea anything about religious life, but I will just see where God is leading me, and I'll trust the fruits of whatever happens through every step of this. And so, just one other quick story about the fruits of these gifts and how God has taught me how I have to be in a community that challenges me and encourages me and who is filled with the Holy Spirit, because I cannot even say that Jesus is Lord without the Holy Spirit. And so we went on the Window Conference, and I just felt like God was telling me, pray in your prayer language, pray in your prayer language. I said, no, there's lots of people around, and all of a sudden people started praying, and they were praying in tongues down below, and it was so loud. I said, okay, I'll pray very quietly. And there was one person next to me specifically. I said, I don't know how to pray for her. I don't know what she needs. She's so reserved. She's so quiet. I don't know her. She's from a different town. God, teach me how to pray for her. And so I started praying this new prayer language that God gave me. And I said, and all of a sudden, like, I didn't know if it was true or not, but I just felt like she has the weight of the world on her shoulders. Like, she is so weighed down. And so I started praying for her and how I felt led to pray for her. And then all of a sudden, God just led me in this beautiful meditation. I had a dream, like a vision, or I don't know, imagination, I don't know, that I was walking with Jesus, and He was holding my hand, and it was beautiful, green, bright, glowing, everybody's glowing, and we were walking, and He stopped me and said, and He didn't say anything, He never said anything, but He communicated so beautifully. Like we were walking along, and all of a sudden there was a man who was crooked, hunched over, and he was darker than the rest of the whole world that was so bright. And he just squeezed my hand, and he pointed to him, as if go over to him. And so I went over to him, and I touched him, and as soon as I touched him, he stood up, and he was straight, and he was bright, and he was illuminated like the rest of, like us, like Jesus and I were. And so we were walking along, and as we walked along, every time he just kind of squeezed my hand and point to somebody else, and I would touch them. But all of a sudden, and he starts to go off a different way, but he stops. And he turns and looks at me and kind of holds my hand, my face in his hand. And without words, he just conveyed to me how much he loves me. And I cannot explain the love that he has for everybody here, that same love. But he just held me, and it's like he knew that I had to understand this before I turned this way. And I said, okay, I understand. So we turned this way, and there was not one man that was crumpled over and dark, but there were thousands of people who were dark and crumpled over. And I just felt so overwhelmed, like I can't touch them all. I can't do it. There's no possible way I could touch all these people. And he just looked at me and he squeezed my hand and pointed to the first one. And so I walked over to the first one and I touched him, and he stood up and he was bright and he was standing up, and he turned around and he touched the person next to him, and that person turned around and touched the person next to him. And this ripple, this wave of light, everybody standing up straight, and this wave of light just came, and thousands of people were standing up straight and bright. And I was so afraid at first, but he just squeezed my hand and pointed to one person, and that's all we have to do. And so as I was praying all this stuff, the man down below at Steubenville, he said, I just feel, maybe you don't know, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I just feel like if everybody can just turn to the person to their left and just put your hands on them, just touch them, and just pray for that one person next to you. And let's just see what the Holy Spirit does. So I opened my eyes, and in the middle of this room full of 5,000 people, my vision was realized. And I touched the person next to me, and the person next to me touched the person next to them. And this ripple, 5,000 people praying for each other. And I just saw this realized. And I really believe that it was the fruit of this prayer, this new prayer language that God gave me. And I know that the gifts of the Holy Spirit, they're not to be ashamed of, they're not to be boasted of, but they're supposed to be used to edify and glorify the church. And He has spoken to me so powerfully. This is where I want you, this is where I'm going to pour out my gifts to you. And this is how it's going to affect the church. And I just see this ripple, this light. It's going to start. Like, it's already started. And all we have to do is go around and touch the person next to us. We don't have to touch thousands and thousands of people, but just the person that God has placed in our life. So, God, you're really fast.